Welcome to Quick Shots, a short format traditional archery podcast, where we introduce you to some of the world's most influential traditional archers, and occasionally, some random dudes. Help keep this content ad-free by supporting us on patreon.com/archerygeek. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, archerypass.com, for all your traditional archery needs. Hey everyone, welcome back to Quick Shots. I'm your host, Mick Chambers. We're here with Tony Taul. Hey, Tony, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you being on. Man, I've got a lot of good memories about you, watching you shoot, dude. I just, every time I see you shoot, you make me happy. I don't know why. I'm just happy to be in trad because you're probably one of the, if you don't know Tony, if you're listening to this right now, and you don't know Tony, you're probably not trad. I'm just going to say it. You are definitely one of our most iconic trad shooters, and I'm sorry it's taking so long to get you on the airwaves here, but I'm glad we get to introduce you to the rest of the archery geek community. Hey, so why don't you give us a little background on how you got into trad archery?
Well, I mean, honestly, it was, my dad used to let my cousin come out and hunt when I was real young. I might have been 6, 7 years old tops. And he brought me a little Fred Bear, little bear, like a little, I think it was 20 pounds at 24 inches or something like that, or vice versa, one of the way.
Yeah.
And I started shooting that bow and shot the heck out of that bow for few years really. And then obviously hit the teenage years, and my archery shooting went downhill, and just for the fact that I was a teenager, I was out running around being silly. And then about heck, I don't know, I was a late bloomer really for as far as that was concerned, because I was about 22, and a buddy of mine had a real nice bow. It was Dan Quillian. I hope I said his name right. Dan Quillian Canebrake. So it was a laminated recurve, and it was a laminated recurve, and I mean that thing was fast. He used to advertise that it was a 200 feet per second bow at 10 grains per pound. I mean, it was a nice bow, and the guy showed it to me, and like it was like a bet. I think I bet you can't hit that dog bowl out in the yard, and it was a pretty good distance, and I smoked it, and just kind of all came back to me, and right then and there, I think I traded the guy a dog kennel and an old Derringer pistol for it, and so that's basically how it started. I started shooting that in the backyard, and
That's
that's
awesome.
from there. That's where it went, and then we kind of went a different route from the laminate bows, but I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about what you shoot and how you shoot that. Where are you? Tell us where you're at.
So I am in central Illinois. Um, I think it's a common misconception with me. I've had people, say I'm from Indiana and from Kentucky and Tennessee, and
Yeah.
nope, I'm from the fine state of Illinois. We're about 40 minutes north of St. Louis, right across the river there. We're river rats.
Hmm. Yeah, so you're almost Missouri. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's kind of in that area. Just it's so amazing watching you shoot. I think my first memory of watching you shoot was at the Trad World, I think like 3 years ago. Was it 3 years
I think
ago?
so.
Yeah, about 3 years ago. But it was just amazing. I was like, who is this dude, man? What is he thinking? Get out there and just shoot like that. And he's just so accurate and so amazing. And let's talk a little bit about that. It's not that you're just a great shooter or great archer, but you're a great archer with, primitive gear. And so why don't you talk a little bit about your what you're shooting currently? What bows are you shooting currently?
Uh, I float around a lot, really. I've always been a heavy bow shooter. I always made real heavy bows. They were, 60 to in between 60 and 80 pounds, is what I like to shoot. And realistically, I have such terrible form, and it's getting better. I'm working on it. I had such terrible form that the heavier bows, were a lot more forgiving for me, because I like to pluck the string and drop my bow arm and do about everything wrong you can do. So those heavy bows were a kind of a crutch for me. This year, this tournament season, I dropped down into the 50s. I think I was shooting anywhere from 47 to 54 pounds, for 3D season. And it allowed me to get my draw back. I think my draw length was only like 25 inches, 26 tops. And so then I was able to build some bows that, I was getting up into the 27 and a half inch range, which is pretty long draw for me. And able to control my shots a little bit better. So that helped. But then come deer season, I was fortunate enough to take a couple deer, and early on with a lighter bow, and I fell back. I got 65 pound short draw bow. It's like 65 at 26, I think, and so and I started shooting, and it was like, oh, I just love this bow. So now I have better form and can shoot a little bit heavier bow, and I like that, which is mostly the opposite for a lot of people. They like to have that, in between that 45 and 50 range. It's just not as comfortable for me. So, but they're self bows, they're Osage self bows.
Yep.
I everything I shoot, I make. And, it's kind of funny. Like I rabbit hunt like crazy, and I do it with a bow, and I'm using a 74 at 27-inch draw, recurve Osage bow. The rabbits around here are pretty feisty, but it shoots good, and I'm comfortable with it. And it's just a good heavy bow. It can take a beating running through the briars and things like that. So I enjoy that bow a lot.
Yeah, that's
I just can't compete with it because of recurve. Sorry.
Right. Tell us a little bit. So you got there eventually. But again, just I'll highlight that for people who may not know who you are. Tony makes and builds his own bows. We're going to talk about that in a second, how he does that. So remind me to let's talk about that, Tony. But he makes them and he competes with them, and then he competes lights out. It's just amazing to watch. Like I said, I keep emphasizing that. But they're heavy bows. Like I don't know how you do it, man. Just strong dude. You're just a strong dude, can pull that back. I can't do that. Especially during a tournament where you're shooting 30 targets. You got to shoot 30 arrows and you're up and down the hills and stuff like that. That's pretty solid, man. But you said you went to a lower poundage this year for 3D.
Yeah, I did. Well, obviously, as any craft progresses, your bow, whatever craft you're doing, it typically gets better the more you do. And so I was getting the same speed out of a 50-pound bow as I was a 60-pound bow, at anywhere from 10 to 13 grains per pound.
Right.
And so I thought, it'll be easier on the shoulders. And realistically, all the heavy bows that I'd made to a 26-inch draw. I was pulling 25, and so they were typically shorter. In a bow build, the length of the bow matters a lot in accordance to draw length. So I had a lot of 58 and 60-inch bows, and I couldn't draw them 27 inches. So I was like, we'll make some bows. And I just dropped the weight because, a little bit longer draw, obviously you're going to get more speed out of it, and so I was getting to the point where I had the same amount of speed coming out, and it was just a little bit easier to tote around, and shoot, which I do still feel more comfortable with the heavy bows. And I attribute being able to shoot them. I've been toting blocks around for going on 24 years for my job, so I think that helps a lot. It's
Keeps that strength.
Basically,
yeah.
It keeps the arm.
I think it's amazing. It's amazing to watch you shoot. You handicap yourself sometime with a cigarette in your mouth, and dude, it's so funny. I get to put video up here. I think I got a video somewhere of that. But yeah, and you nerves of steel too. I would say that you've been up in front of a lot of people to shoot, and you've been successful, right? So I think it's amazing. And as you said, you're a craftsman. So can we talk a little bit about how to make bows? Not how to make them, but it's also a little bit about that process, how you got involved in making your own bows. And then is it hard? Has it? I'll probably have a lot of questions, man. Just like take us through the whole thing and where you got started.
Uh, so there's a couple reasons. Um, the first one was like it was a bet. I mean, we were in a group of people, a buddy of mine, and then we were goose hunting actually, and I was trying to get them with a bow, and they were shotgun hunting, and we started talking about archery, and my it's kind of weird. My buddy's buddy, he was like, "Oh, I bet you can't build a bow and take a deer with it." And I was like, well, I'll do that. So I started kind of researching and looking at homemade bows, self bows, things like that. And I thought, wow, these are really cool. I want to buy one, and that'll give me something to work off of. And then I started seeing prices of them, and I thought, wow, I'm really poor, so I'm just going to wing it, and we're going to start shooting, because we weren't as busy as what we are now, So we were not that we were less fortunate, we just hadn't built the business up yet. So I thought, man, I'm gonna just try to wing it. And a feller up at the local lumber store actually built bows, and somebody had told me I needed to talk to him, and he said, you chase a ring, and you chase a ring, and you hope the bow doesn't break, and you start carving it out. So
And
that
what
was
is that?
about the
What is? Can you mind if I ask? What does that mean? Chase a ring.
So you have growth rings in your wood.
Okay.
And for Osage, some bows you don't white woods, you really don't have to, as I say, chase the ring. So basically, you have your growth rings, and if you can imagine a sapling, grabbing a sapling out in the woods and bending it to the ground, you can bend the top of that tree all the way to the ground, make a perfect arc with it. And but if you bend it all the way to the ground and tap that arc with a pocket knife, well, it's going to splinter there and it's going to come apart.
Right.
So basically, you want to get down to one growth ring for the back of the bow. So the back of the bow is going to be one continual growth ring from tip to tip, and
Okay.
that's going to mimic the wood's natural bend, basically. So you hear people say, "Oh, I violated a ring and the bow broke there." Um, that ring violation is the equivalent to tapping that bent sapling with
Right.
a
Okay. I
pocket
get it.
knife.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, and I mean, with Osage, it's very crucial. I mean, there's other woods, hickory, things like that. You can just pull the bark off, and that's the back of your bow. Um, I prefer the Osage, obviously, because it's tougher, and I'm hard on equipment. I mean, realistically, I need I need the hardest wood possible because I'm going to bang it off trees and fence posts and wood gates climbing over them. So I need stable wood. I just think it's the best wood there is. But so yeah, I mean that's basically it. I was broke and I really wanted a cool bow, so I started trying to build them. And I think my first bow, well, there's not thinking. I know my first bow was uh, it was a nightmare. These guys building these bows now, they're like, oh, this is my first bow, and it's gorgeous. And just people getting into the trade. And my bow was not gorgeous, but I was able to um, get a string on it, get it shooting. I think it was probably 45 pounds, something like that. And I started working the stave on a Friday, and I just went gun ho all weekend. And then Monday night, the next Monday, I went out and hunted with it, and I actually shot a deer with it, killed it. So that was pretty much it for me. Like I was hooked after that. I mean, my own equipment. Um, just the knowledge. And I mean, it was the most janky bow you ever see. I still got it somewhere around here, but like it wasn't a good looking walking stick, let alone a bow. But it shot, so that worked.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Who would you say you or Clay Hayes is better at making bows?
well, it's no doubt about that Clay's
You,
better.
you are. You are. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Come on.
yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of better warriors out there than me. I mean, there's so many. You've got, I mean, Waylon Olive. I don't know if you've ever met Waylon Olive, but
I'm not.
um, you know, if you haven't, look him up on Facebook,
Okay.
and he's probably the greatest. If not equally as great, there's a James Rimp. That's another one, hamstring archery out of Montana.
Yeah.
Um, Will Harrison. Will Harrison was my inspiration. You know, the bows that Will was making were, I mean, were, to my opinion, are the most beautiful bows ever made. He makes real snaky Osage bows,
Right.
and he's just a genius, you know, and he's a heck of a musician too. But he was my inspiration. I remember seeing his extremely snaky bow, and that was one of the first self bows that I had seen, you know, online looking up. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I just want to meet this guy. I want to hear, you know, want to see this bow. And I actually owned the bow for a little bit. You know, I ended up trading a bow for it. It went around the horn a couple times, and I ended up trading it and then giving it back to Will. Um, because it's honestly the most beautiful bow. If you were at Twin Oaks, you've probably seen it. It was a copperhead, real snaky
Yep.
bow, and I
Yep.
mean
Yep.
it's just gorgeous. So, um, you know, I mean, so there's a lot of inspirations, but you know, I can build them and I can build them pretty quick. I can knock them out pretty nice, but I'm not very good at the finish work really. Um, but realistically, I get so excited once I shoot the first arrow out of it. Then finish work, I just want to get it finished real quick so I can go out and shoot it. You know, so
Yeah.
but they are. I mean, they're not exposed definitely, but there's definitely a lot better out there. But I'm all right with
Now,
that. It gives me a challenge. It gives me something to look up to.
are you selling your bows? And how have you
Yeah,
started that yet?
every once in a while. Yeah, you know, I've sold a few, given many more away. You know, it's hard to sell one when somebody's, oh man, I love these bows, and you know, for me, I just when somebody says, oh, can you build me a bow? I'd rather give it to them than sell it to them, just for the honor that they asked me to build them a bow. That's pretty neat, you know, and
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't cost me anything but time that I enjoy doing anyway. So, because we harvest our own wood around here, we're Osage rich, so. Um, you know, I have sold a few,
Yeah.
but there again, I'm not the best businessman, and it's fun when somebody wants one of my bows. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to stop them from owning one of my bows because I put a price on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the most trad thing I've ever heard in my life, honestly. That's good. That's just you just got a great heart. I think you know, so many people talk so great about you in the trad community. I think it's overwhelming. It must be overwhelming for you sometimes.
Uh, I mean, people lie. I guess I don't know. Uh, you know, I, I enjoy it. You know, I love archery. Archery's kept me out of trouble. You know, back in the day, I was never real wild or anything, but you know, it's one of those things you can't go out and be a jackleg at night if you got to get up in the morning and hunt or things like that. You know, and just the trad community in itself is quite honestly like you know probably the best community there is. I've never met so many people that are willing to help, willing to you know willing to give encouragement to someone they're competing head against, you know, or going head to head against, and you know, so that's always nice. And we try to bring the kids as much, you know, they're getting a little bit older now, so
Yeah.
they're getting away from you know sleeping in tents and running around the woods get chewed up by mosquitoes. But you know, back when we were bringing them all, they could run. We could go to the 3D shoot. They would run, and I don't even let them run around town. You know, where I'm at, I don't trust many
That's
people
right.
around here. But it was good. They could do whatever they wanted, and I kind of veered off there a little bit. But
Do you think
um,
that do you think that uh that self bow people who shoot self bows are more trad than recurve archers?
here's my thing about that. You know,
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. I was just playing around, but go ahead. Tell us. Give us your opinion.
so my opinion is I think everybody should own a self bow, but
Okay.
not necessarily just be self bow shooters. You know, I could care less if you're shooting a big metal bow or you know, a stick, you know, old twig pulled off a tree. Just getting out there, the community's great. You know, now granted, I love competing against recurves and stuff to challenge myself and to you know not necessarily say that all you know stick bows are better than you know metal bows or laminate bows or anything like that, but it's just a challenge. Everything's a challenge to me, not necessarily against someone else, but a challenge, you know, if I can hang, I want to be able to hang with, with the top shooters of all classes. And, we ain't quite there yet, but we're trying. But as far as like, do I think it's more trad? Heck no. I don't care I don't care if you gap shoot or string walk or anything like that. I mean, just getting out there and shooting and being a part of this community is what's most important. And realistically, I do believe everybody should own a self bow because they are the most least forgiving of all
Yes.
disciplines when it comes to single string archery.
Yes.
And so I've given bows to people and been like, just shoot it for a week. Don't pick up any other bow, shoot it for a week, and then if you're not comfortable with it, go back to your bow, watch what happens. And you literally where you can have forgiveness of a metal bow, with the weight and things like that. You if you pluck just a little bit, I mean, realistically, if you exhale wrong, you might send one flying. But
Yeah.
then when you go back to your preferred discipline, you're going to find that your form tightens right up.
Good point.
It makes everything better in my opinion. It's almost like a coaching aid, for those struggling with target panic or poor form, things like that, because you will know every issue that you have shooting a self bow, because they are so unforgiving. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not center shot. They're not, I mean, now we can get them close. I try to get them close to center shot, for a heavier spined arrow, get a little bit more hunting weight, things like that. But like, I just think everybody needs one. I mean, even if it's, you know, whatever you can get your hands on as far, get one, and they will help you. They will help your form and your discipline that you're wanting to compete with.
So you the ones you make yourself, you put a shelf on those?
Well, it's not a cut-in shelf, but there is an arrow rest. So typically, I'll
Sorry, you just cut out there.
sorry, um, I use cow hoof a lot. Cow hoof works really well, and just build just a small little thing, small little rest, mainly for hunting. I do a lot of tree stand hunting around here, so I'll hang my bow up, want to keep an arrow on it, rather than having to try to knock an arrow when a deer's coming in. So uh, I do have a rest, but a lot of people think that I shoot off my knuckle because they're so small. I mean, it's the size of a pencil eraser. I mean, there's nothing to it really. It's just something for the arrow to sit on.
And to index every single time, I imagine, right? So you have do you put a knocking point on your string?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's
Okay.
knocking points. I mean, we're not animals here, Mick.
I think no, are you 3 under? I forget now. Are you split finger?
Yeah, I'm a 3 under shooter.
Okay, 3 under shooter. Okay, you get that really close to your eye. Yeah, that's amazing and pulling back at that much weight. So, okay, okay, forgive my ignorance here. Teach me, please teach me, like when you're looking at you're using wood arrows, I assume 90% of the time.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
So for hunting, you probably use carbon or do you, I don't know.
No, I'm 100% wood arrow, wood and
100%.
river cane. We got a pretty good batch of river cane around here. So I, uh, you know, occasionally like to make some primitive arrows too. But yeah, it's all wood or bamboo.
Who do you, if you're not making your own arrows, who do you go to? Who's your go-to? Is it just kind of off the shelf
So
Lancaster or Three Rivers or whatever?
I've got two. David Morley makes a great arrow, vintage customs. I think he's out of upstate New York, and then Andy Barnett
Andy does, yeah.
is Feather and Woods, and he's out of Kansas. Oh man,
That's
and
okay.
he builds a wonderful arrow as well.
We can stop with Andy. We
Cody
can stop.
Greenwood.
Cody's good. Yeah, Cody's got some good shafts too, right? Cody's working on his shafts, footed
Yeah,
shafts.
he sent me a boatload of footed shafts, and they were just nice deal. I'd made him a bow, and he'd asked me if I wanted some shafts, and um, so he sent me some. I sent them off to Dave Morley. Dave Morley finished them up. Honestly, I hate making arrows. It's I've done it before, but it's not for me.
Yeah, some
But
of
I
those
shoot
guys are like
Greenwood
artists.
shafts a lot.
some of those
Oh
guys are
yeah,
like
it's amazing.
artists. It's just amazing how they do wooded. Like I like good wood arrows too. Like I like to shoot good wood arrows. I mean, it's so much, especially out of a bow with that much weight and so light. You want a pretty heavy arrow, or
Hmm.
else it just shake the fillings out of your teeth, right?
Oh yeah, I've made a couple of those bows.
um, so what do you shoot? Sorry, let's go back real quick. What weight are you shooting on the fingers right now? Are you switching back
I'm
and forth?
shooting 70. So, well, I switch back and forth. I shoot a lot of bows, but so for deer hunting, I'm shooting 65 at 26. Um, Little 60-inch Osage short bow. I'm shooting about 640, 650 grain arrows, right at 10 grains per pound. On that bow, I shoot a lot of stone point. Um, so the points are a lot lighter. Typically, now I do have some, with some steel heads that they're probably running around 680, 700, something like that, and they're
Yeah,
greenwood shafts. Um, and then my rabbit hunting rig, which is what I've been doing pretty much every day here the last couple of weeks. Yeah, that's I'm shooting whatever arrows fly good out of it because I lose them and break them,
yeah.
and it's 74 at 27. So
That's a lot of weight, man. That's really good. Um, what are your next? So, would you say you're a hunter or a competitive archer?
initially, the competitive portion of it started out for hunting. It was just practice in the off season, something to do. And we don't have a lot of trad shooters around here, so I was going to local shoots and just shooting with compound guys. And then my wife actually made me go to a trad shoot. I went to Cloverdale Nationals here 6, 7 years ago, and that was the first trad shoot I went to. And she kind of forced me to cross the river, and leave Illinois. And so initially it started out for hunting. Um, I've come to love the competition archery, not even so much for the competition, but just for the friendships I've made. It's definitely 50-50. I
Okay.
mean, I'm a better competitive archer than I am a hunter, I think. I get in my head a lot in the woods. Now, I'm successful. I have great success in the woods every year shooting, which we don't, I hunt whitetail and cottontail pretty much. Um, but I'm successful in both. Um, but I'm also, I hunt all the time, so I shoot a lot, and uh, I have a lot of shots. We're lucky to have a lot of, a deer rich environment around here. Um, but if I'd have taken all the deer that I've shot at this year, like I could probably feed the whole town up the road from me here because I've taken some shots now,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I'm not too proud to admit that I've missed more than I've killed, but I've still done well, so that's all right.
You say you get into your head a little bit in the woods, but I've seen you get up in front of, as I said, I've seen you get up in front of 100 people and just perform and just, like that's amazing to me. I'm just gonna say it's amazing to me because it's not an easy thing to do, right? And especially when you're shooting against your peers, you're shooting against some of the best shooters in the world you've shot against and shot with. I shouldn't say against. I don't know that in trad we say against a lot. We say we shoot with, and then the better man wins that day, or the better woman wins that day. Just
I agree.
because it's a friendship, I think, right? You're friends with all the Oklahoma boys, right? Uh,
Oh yeah,
they're all the self bow guys down there. They have a great competition down there for self bows. I forget what it's called. Do you know?
OJM.
Oh yeah, yeah, OJ. That's pretty
Yeah,
amazing stuff.
OJM's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you've
only
been
been
there a
there
few
once.
times?
I've been there once. I, I need to get back there. It's usually so OJAM starts usually when my real work starts picking back up,
Yeah.
because we're seasonal. So it does make it tough. You come out of the winter. I got to kind of dig my way out of my burrow and get my hair cut, go back into the real world.
You look
Uh,
great today, by the way. You look fantastic.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, I combed my hair. Uh,
Good.
but yeah, I would definitely like to get back there. And by all means, like you kind of talked about sitting up. I don't know what the reason is, but when I'm up in front of 100 people, I shoot 100 times better than when I'm shooting on the 3D course standing next to five. I get in my head so bad. I get to thinking, what if I shoot low? I don't think about any of that when I'm up in front of people. Usually my wife's there watching, so I
Good
always like
support.
to try to make her proud, and the sight of her makes me feel
A
a
little more
lot more
confident.
calm, or if my kids are watching things like that, I just all I do is think about them and put an arrow in the target, and I don't think about if I'm going to pluck or you know miss, or I just don't think about it. When there's a crowd, I don't think about it. When there's five people standing in the woods, walking around, I choke every time, and it is what it is.
It is. You're
Usually it
absolutely.
comes to the shooter.
It is what it is, and I think that's the beauty of a tough sport, right? It's not. There's no gimmies
Yeah.
out there. So every shot you have to focus 100%. Dude, I really appreciate you being on. This was excellent. Just before we call it a day, and thanks for coming on. We are doing this on a very blustery and snowy and cold day, and you're jumping on here. I appreciate that. I know you got other things you probably would rather be doing. Give me one piece of advice you would give to a beginner on shooting and how to become better.
Well, one, don't overshoot yourself. As far as when you're practicing, I think set a designate. I mean, it's hard for me. It was funny because Layla kind of said the same thing. I think of, if I shoot a bad group and I'm like, this is the last 5 arrows, and I shoot a bad group, I'm like, nope, I'm going to shoot until I get a good group. So I'll
Yeah.
agree with her there. But also, I think people put too much pressure on themselves. Am I should I close one eye? Should I open one eye? Should I how's my form? We get on this how's my form kick all the time on social media, things like that. And then it almost becomes not as fun because you're relying on what other people are trying to tell you to do, and I mean, I'm open to the fact that I am not a very good. I'm not I don't have good form. I'm a poor form shooter. I try to compensate that. I think I would be a much better shot if I would get a better form. But by the same token, I'm having fun. When I start thinking about all these things, I have less fun. So I think the main thing is just not to worry about what's going on around you. Obviously you want to be consistent. Consistent is key. But if you're consistent and not shooting like Jerry next to you or whatever, um, I wouldn't put too much thought in that. I mean, if you get a good consistent anchor, um, everything will come. You'll be able to figure it out and fine tune it. But I think people put too much emphasis on fine tuning right away, and then they get discouraged. And well, I can't do it. I'm going to go back to compound or whatever. And which there's nothing wrong with that. But shooting 12s all the time with a compound gets old. You got to throw in a couple X's there, here and there. And
Yeah.
uh, I think it's just have fun is the main thing. Get a bow, don't overbow yourself, and be consistent with your anchor. Be consistent, try to be as consistent as you can, but don't worry about if it's what everybody's doing, what everybody looks like, because it's. I mean, you do you.
You do you, have fun. That's great advice from one of the most trad dudes you'll ever run into. One of the nicest guys too, on the competition line. So thanks very much, Tony. Appreciate you. For those guys that have stuck around, check out our sponsor, archerypass.com. They sell wood arrows too, and they sell a bunch of, and one of the first companies to sell wood arrows on the internet. And great trad equipment. So archerypass.com. Thanks again, everyone. Hunt the good stuff. We'll talk to you soon. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll try and get this out before New Year.
Merry Christmas.
See ya.